US President Donald Trump is in Beijing for a high-stakes two-day visit, and talks with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping are currently underway. A range of thorny issues including Tehran, Taiwan and trade are on agenda. Trump met Xi Jinping as China hosted a military reception for the US president at Great Hall of the People. The two leaders shook hands after Trump arrived in a motorcade to the steps. Trump alongside Xi inspected military honor guards and received a 21-gun salute. At the start of the meeting, Xi told Trump the two countries should be partners and not rivals, as he expressed happiness to receive Trump for the US leader's first trip to China since 2017. He noted that the world has arrived at a new crossroads. While Trump, for his part, said that the two superpowers would have a fantastic future together. So what may be happening behind the closed doors? Well, the Iran war in particular is to come up in US President's talks with Chinese counterpart. Trump on Tuesday said he expected a long talk with Xi about Iran, which sells most of its US-sanctioned oil to China, but insisted that he doesn't think US needs any help with Iran from Beijing. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is accompanying Donald Trump on the China visit, however, told Fox News that Washington wants China to play a more active role in pressuring Iran over escalating tensions in the Persian Gulf. Highlighting the impact on Chinese interests, Rubio said several Chinese-linked ships remain stranded in the Strait of Hormuz, while one vessel was reportedly hit over the weekend. Well, he added that it was in China's own interest to help de-escalate the crisis. Taiwan, another issue that has strained ties, is expected to come up for discussion. Well, Trump said he would speak to Xi about US arms sales to the self-governing democracy claimed by China. That would be a departure from historic US insistence that it would not consult Beijing on its support for the island, and one which will be closely watched by Taipei and US allies in the region. However, China has already reiterated its strong opposition to the arms sale. And for more on this, TVBS world correspondent Dimitri Buria has sent us this report from Taipei. Listen into what he has to say.
President Trump is in Beijing right now, undertaking what the White House calls a landmark summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Trade, the Iran War, and AI top the agenda, but Taiwan is the wild card. Former U.S. Ambassador Nicholas Burns warned on X that Taiwan could upend the cause. He urged Trump to stick to 50 years of American policy, keep selling arms to Taiwan, and don't weaken its government, he says. The ruling DPP government says the U.S. has reassured them publicly and privately that American policy hasn't changed, but Trump's comments before departure, saying he would discuss Taiwan arms sales with Xi, broke a 40-year norm. The opposition TMT sees things differently. Party chair Cheng Li-wen told government media that if Trump reaffirms One China and opposes Taiwan independence, that's completely in line with her party's position. Both sides say they want stability, not breakthroughs, but with Taiwan on the agenda, even small shifts in language could have big consequences. This is Dimitri Buria in Taipei for TVBS World Taiwan.
And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani is now joining us live from New York. Well, Susan, we just saw, how Trump and Xi was the arrival at the Great Hall of the People for the formal welcome ceremony. So after that, what are we expecting from the talks today?
So after that ceremony, we did hear opening remarks from Xi Jinping and President Trump. And it's very fascinating to see in those opening remarks where things stand, at least in the minds of both leaders. Xi Jinping talked about how 2026 could be really a year of cooperation between the two sides, and really talking about how expectations should be managed and how the two sides can really work together. He acknowledged that it's not only the two countries, but the world is watching. I thought it was fascinating that Xi Jinping brought up the term, the Thucydides trap, which was popularized by Harvard professor Graham Allison, which allegedly essentially says that emerging powers and established powers risk falling into a trap if expectations aren't managed and strategic tensions aren't managed, and they'll fall into the trap of conflict. Xi brought that up, and of course welcoming President Trump and his delegation. And then President Trump in his opening statements took those few minutes, that opportunity, to talk about the most important thing on his mind, which is the issue of trade, saying that he has brought the creme of the crop, if you may, the best of tech executives along with his delegation to China, really hoping to establish better trade relations and more fair trade relations between the two sides. So on the one hand, you have Xi, on the other hand, you have President Trump, both really having expectations going into this meeting. None of them publicly talked about Iran or tensions over Taiwan, but they both said that this is a very different world that they're witnessing and sitting at the same table than they did back in 2017.
Right, and Susan, can you get us more details on the expected timeline for the joint statement or the precedent? What breakthroughs are we actually predicting after this?
You know, it's interesting. We don't know whether or not there's going to be a joint statement. I think the next time we are going to hear from President Trump, we didn't hear from him on Air Force One en route. It might be through a social media post, as he often does after bilateral meetings or high-level meetings like this. Or perhaps he may have an opportunity to talk to the press. He does have a number of interviews lined up with Fox News. He's going to be talking to them tomorrow night, Thursday, and of course on Friday as well. We'll get a better understanding on how this bilateral meeting went. Of course, on the Chinese side, we'll see if they'll put anything out. But, you know, there is even, a thought of a sort of press conference between the two sides at the end of this meeting, or sort of some kind of a joint statement. That's nothing that we've heard of as of yet. We'll see whether or not something like that will come out, or whether or not, each delegation is going to put out something on their own. But of course, we're going to be seeing a lot of President Trump and Xi Jinping, a lot of the optics of, not only the warm welcome that we saw, but perhaps other venues as well. They have a state dinner in a few hours from now, and of course, lined up a number of events for Friday as well.
Right, and we just heard like President Donald Trump has hailed fantastic relationship with Xi Jinping and China, and he's told Xi that he was looking forward to the discussions and that everyone in the US was talking about their summit. And it's the same way where Xi says China and the US common interest outweigh differences, but we'll have to wait and see what exactly are we getting out of the talks. But thank you so much, Susan, for joining us and getting us all the updates.